Hey everyone, John here with a quick programming note about Mac Stories Unwind and App Stories. There will not be an episode on July 26th, but we will be back the following week, nor will there be an episode of App Stories on July 29th. I'm going to be traveling that day. So there won't be an App Stories Plus the day before that either. But just like Mac Stories Unwind, we will be back the following week. Just taking a short time off to travel and enjoy the summer. We will see you again soon. Bye. Welcome back to App Stories, a Mac Stories podcast all about the world of apps. Today's episode is brought to you by SetApp. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, last week we did the iOS and iPadOS preview, so I thought we would talk a little bit about macOS, which is the preview that I wrote, and I've been pretty happy with it. I mean, I did say in my preview, spoiler, that it's a little underwhelming, but that's not surprising, given that we're sitting waiting on Apple Intelligence features. None of those things are in the beta, but there are things to talk about. And I guess really quickly, to kick things off before we get into the features, is that people ask me all the time whether it's safe to do this, to install these public betas. And I think generally it is. I mean, everybody's setup is different. So, your setup is different from mine. And who's to say that my setup is stable, but yours may not be. But even despite that, I think Apple really in the last 4 or 5 years has done a great job of making sure that these public betas, while not free of bugs, because they are betas after all, they are not the kind of things that are going to ruin your computing life. And by that, I mean, I have not lost data. I don't have any apps that don't work unless it's on purpose because the developers decided to wait, such as the Rogue Amoeba apps. But yeah, it's been perfectly fine. I mean, I've had some weird stuff going on, don't get me wrong, but it's not been anything that has really been a problem for me day to day. But, by that same token, it's good to have a backup plan. I've got a laptop that doesn't have Sequoia on it, and I have everything properly backed up. So I'm not too worried about data either. But just thought I'd put that out there before we get into the features.
Nice. For the first time in years, I don't have the beta of macOS installed on my machine.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, I don't have it. So you're going to have to tell me what's new, what's different. Should I install it? Like, do I need it? I have no idea. Because as we'll see in a story that I kind of want to publish this summer, I've been working on it forever. I have been doing everything on the iPad Pro. And so I haven't used my Mac in a while. And so you're going to have to teach me, and John, and tell me, what's new in Sequoia? I keep calling it Sonoma, and I know that it's not Sonoma. What's new in Sequoia?
Well, I think as someone who works on the iPad, you're going to find that a lot of the features that are new are common with the iPad and the iPhone. That is something that maybe is a little different than past years where, sometimes we would get features on the iPhone, for instance, but the Mac and or the iPad would have to wait. That's not really the case this year. Those 3 systems are being moved forward together in tandem, which is nice. Or I don't know what is 3. When tandem is 2, what would be 3? I don't know. But yes, they're moving together and they're moving forward. What's different, the main difference, I would say, are threefold. There's iPhone mirroring, iPhone notifications, and window tiling. And we can talk about all 3 of those. I think iPhone mirroring is probably one of the things that maybe you would use the most on your MacPad, because it will allow you to, with your single MacPad setup, to access your iPad, your Mac, and your iPhone simultaneously, leaving your phone in another room, in your pocket, in standby on a charger, whatever it happens to be. And this is one of those continuity features. It's really impressive. When it works really well. I can get into the problems I had for a while, but when it works, it's like interacting with your phone on your screen. And I've got a nice big studio display on my desk, And what I can do is I can open up my iPhone on my studio display and interact with it just like I would with my phone using my Magic Trackpad to swipe between, home pages, select apps, open them, interact with the UI, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work as well with third-party mice. I have found that my Logitech mouse, I can't use the scroll wheel. I can do other things. I can click to open up an app, but I can't actually use the scroll wheel. I don't know if that's planned to come in the future or not. Apple hasn't said anything about that one way or the other, but it works perfectly well with my Magic Trackpad, which is good. And there are keyboard shortcuts to do things like go to your home screen, go to the app switcher, and to activate Spotlight search. So it is pretty easy to move around, but you might ask, why would I want to do that when my phone is right here? And it's a fair question. I mean, I think it's going to really depend on the person. For me, over time, iPhone mirroring has grown on me more because I've realized that I have certain apps that are iPhone only that I access throughout the day as I work, where it's just kind of convenient sometimes to have the iPhone mirroring up and be able to interact with my iPhone on my Mac's display without having to actually grab my iPhone. So the example I use in the preview is the Roomba app from iRobot that allows me to see if I'm on the first floor in my office, it's vacuuming on the third floor. I can kind of hear it, but not always, depending where it is. Has it gotten stuck? Does it need to be emptied? I can just kind of have it there and flip over and check on the status of it every now and then. So there's things like that. I have an app for my thermostat to control heating and cooling, which also is iPhone only. And a lot of times I will adjust the temperature in the house just a little bit up or down, depending. And so having that can be kind of handy. It's little things like that. Or for instance, maybe I just sat down to work after I went out and exercised and I haven't looked at, the stats on my run or something. I can open up Gentler Streak right there on my iPhone on my Mac and take a quick look before getting back to what I was doing. So there are reasons to do it, I think.
So, couple of questions. How do you start it in the first place? Like, is there an icon in the dock? Like, how do you say, I want to see my phone?
Yeah, there is an icon in the dock.
Okay.
And so if your phone needs to be locked, and so when you click on that icon and your phone happens to be locked, it takes 2 or 3 seconds. You kind of see it like a representation of the iPhone appears. It's like an iPhone frame, basically. And it says the name of your iPhone. Mine is, iPhone 15 Pro Max. And it kind of fills from the bottom up, not with the picture on your screen, but the letters in that identify which phone you have kind of fill up with an image, and then it pops into view and you're good to go. Now, and if you look at your iPhone, you'll see that it says something along the lines of this iPhone is in use through iPhone mirroring. And then if you grab your phone and you unlock it, you'll see a notification basically telling you that the connection with the Mac has been broken.
Okay.
So that's how you leave iPhone mirroring.
Okay. Can you turn the virtual iPhone in landscape?
You cannot do it. It's interesting. You can, but I believe it only works with apps that are exclusively landscape. So if you have a game,
yeah.
It's mainly made for games, I think. So if you're playing Flappy Bird, okay, or you're playing, Zenless Zone Zero or something, you can switch it to landscape. If you have an app though, like Mail, where Mail is optionally in landscape, it doesn't work.
Okay.
I have to do more testing with this, and that could change, I think, during the betas, but that's where it is right now.
And if you're playing, if you're playing a game on your iPhone on the Mac, does the game controller need to be paired with the iPhone or the Mac?
It needs to be, that's a good question. I think the phone. I think it's the phone, although I don't hold me to that because I have not tested that yet. I'm trying to remember back to the demos I got. That's a good question. I'll put that on my list of things to try. But the audio comes through your Mac. it actually transfers not just the video, but the audio. So it's coming out of my Mac Studio display if I'm playing a game or, just using an app.
And I also wanted to ask, you mentioned support for multi-touch gestures. Sort of like, how does that work? Like, so if you two-finger scroll on your trackpad, it just scrolls naturally in an iPhone app? Like,
yes.
Okay, so it just works.
Just like you'd expect.
Just like you'd expect. Nice, very nice. Is there anything, like, is there any limitation you ran into while you were testing this for the beta? Or was it just like, it's literally an iPhone?
It's literally an iPhone. I
Nice.
mean, I haven't run into anything that felt weird or off or anything like that. And another aspect of it, it ties into the iPhone notifications.
Right, I was going to ask you about this. Okay.
Yeah, iPhone notifications are their own separate thing in that if you have some apps that just send you notifications, they're not interactive or anything, you will get them on your Mac. But if they're interactive, you can actually use them on the Mac and they behave as though you're interacting with them on your iPhone. So, for example, one is like, I'll give two examples. One was I was accessing our accounting software called Xero, which is a web app. They don't have a Mac app, but they have an iPhone app. And if they don't recognize the device that you're on, they ask you to authenticate by tapping on a button in the iPhone app. But they send you a notification and you can do it from the notification. That notification showed up on my Mac where I was trying to get into the Xero web app. And I clicked on it and it loaded the web page. So that was really handy. Didn't have to grab my iPhone and, deal with that notification there. Also, if I got a notification from completing a workout in Gentler Streak, if I click on that, it just opens up iPhone mirroring automatically, assuming your phone is locked and available to mirror. Then it'll open up the app and take you right to that workout like it would if you were on your iPhone. So that is kind of nice. I mean, there are not a lot of notifications that I have like that on my iPhone that I would want necessarily on my Mac. You can tailor them a little bit, but I have so many notifications turned off on my iPhone that it hasn't really felt like I've been inundated with iPhone notifications, which is nice. And I actually have appreciated having it from time to time. The one thing about them that's different is that, you know how a notification usually has a little icon of the app that sent it. And in that icon, it will show you a small overlay, almost like the notifications you get in messages
Right.
or mail or whatever. The badge is a little badge of an iPhone, and it's a little hard to see. Honestly, it's like this kind of white on white glyph that is a little difficult to see, which I don't like that, because depending if you have, maybe a very small screen laptop or you have a bigger screen that's farther away, it can be a little hard to see, but it's not terrible. It's not, from an accessibility standpoint, though, it's a little rough. I should mention that I have had some trouble with iPhone mirroring. I had like a period of 9 or 10 days where it just wouldn't work. And it was just a weird bug where every time I tried to connect, it would tell me that my iPhone's microphone was in use and it wouldn't connect. That must be some sort of security thing, I suppose. But my iPhone's microphone was not turned on. I was not using, the phone app or any other app that used the microphone. And I tried things like I turned off microphone access for every single app on my iPhone. Still, it told me the microphone was activated. I restarted the phone, I restarted my Mac, did all these different things. And finally, I thought to myself, well, this is a security feature. I wonder if I go into security and privacy and go into the microphone settings and look in there, maybe I can figure something out. And I went in there, nothing looked unusual, nothing was activated that looked strange. So I just picked a random app and turned off the microphone and then turned it back on, and it shook something loose and it worked again after that. So it's one of those things that's maybe needs a little more time in the oven, but when it's working, it's really nice.
Nice.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by SetApp. SetApp is the app subscription that offers dozens, in fact, over 250 apps for Mac and iOS. On SetApp, users can get plans to cover only apps for Mac, only apps for iOS, or both. With SetApp, users can install and use the apps they need to tackle tasks like file conversion, coding, writing, emailing, editing, working with AI, working with images, videos, PDFs, explore various Mac maintenance and customization tools, as well as get apps for security. Some of the most popular apps on SetApp include the massively popular cleaner for Mac called Clean My Mac X, a Mac menu bar customization tool called Bartender, we all know that one, and a universal file converter called Permute. Plus, you can take screenshots by downloading CleanShot X, which is an excellent app. You also get VPNs, a battery manager, a manager for your clipboard, tools for file management, password management, and a whole lot more. SetApp saves you the time you would otherwise spend researching apps because it's a carefully curated collection, making finding and trying new tools for your Mac and iPhone stress-free, so you can get things done faster and get away from your screen. Plus, save the hassle of multiple app subscriptions. Users in the EU will appreciate that SetApp has recently launched a beta of its very own alternative app marketplace called SetApp Mobile. EU iPhone users can subscribe to SetApp Mobile, install the marketplace on their iPhone, and browse and install the iOS apps available in it directly from SetApp Mobile, which has a different collection of iOS apps than the desktop version of SetApp. That desktop version of SetApp also offers amazing AI-powered apps that support the use of major AI models like GPT-O and DALL-E 3. You can even access the AI models in the apps with your own API key or get an AI Plus subscription plan from SetApp. One of the AI tools in SetApp that's worth mentioning is PDF Pals. It's an app that enables you to chat with your PDFs, which is kind of a wild thing to think about. You can also find apps to generate text, get real-time assistance in meetings, generate meaningful file names for screenshots, and a whole lot more. If you haven't tried SetApp yet, you can do it for free with a 7-day free trial. And with the App Stories link, you can get 20% off SetApp's most versatile Mac plus iOS annual plan. Go now to setapp.com to learn more, and be sure to use that link in the show notes to get 20% off for new customers. Our thanks to SetApp for their support of the show.
Can you tell me about window tiling on macOS? Do you like it? Do you use it? Is it better or worse than third-party multitasking utilities?
It's very good, but it's limited, is the way I guess I would put it. I mean, I'm not someone who does much in the way of fancy tiling. I don't have like a lot of different layouts that I turn to. It's usually, for me, it's either maximizing the window that I'm using, so it's full screen, but not, like Apple full screen. Or I have two next to each other. That's like 99% of the use cases for me. And that's very easily done through an app like Raycast, which you can just type in maximize, MAX, and then left and right. And I do that all the time, and it's very quick and easy because my hands are on the keyboard already. So it's taken some time for me to get used to using Apple's setup. It is nice. It has like 8 options to, they're built into like 2 categories, and it can do left and right. It can do full screen. It can do left and right. It can do top and bottom. It can do quarters, and that's about it. Now, it can also do the windows abutting each other, so they're touching, or it can leave a very small margin between the windows, which I think is
what's the idea for the margin? Like, why the margin?
I don't think there's a reason other than aesthetics, because I thought, well, maybe this is so that you can access your desktop, by clicking in between.
Right.
But it doesn't work.
Okay.
Because it's such a thin pixel margin. It's literally like, if it's even 10 pixels, I would be surprised. I like the look, and I don't feel like I'm wasting screen real estate because they're so narrow. But I think it's really just for looks more than anything else, because I haven't found a real good reason to use it other than if you think it looks better that way.
Got it. I see. Um,
Yes. So I guess what I would say is things like Magnet, Rectangle, Lasso, all these third-party apps that can do a lot more in terms of the different layouts and having different ways to kind of set those things up and having presets built and all that kind of thing. It doesn't do any of that, and I think those apps are going to be absolutely fine. The way you get into mirroring is there's a bunch of different ways. There are keyboard shortcuts. There's uh, the green button up in the corner of Windows. You can hover over it and select from that. You can drag to the edge, which is not my favorite way to do it because there are other things that happen when you drag to the edge, like going to another, desktop and things like that. So what I like if you do the dragging method, I think the better way to do it is to hold down the Option key, because then it activates kind of like the preview a lot faster of where you're heading, whether your mouse is dragging over to the corner or to the side or whatever it happens to be. But there are a lot of options, a lot of ways to do it. And I think for someone like me who uses the keyboard a lot, the keyboard shortcuts or just continuing with a third-party app is probably the best if you're happy. But when I'm already have my hand on a mouse or on the trackpad, using Apple's feature works just as well for me too.
so iPhone mirroring, iPhone notifications, window tiling, are these the 3 macOS exclusive features this year? Like, are these because the other ones, there's a bunch of cross-platform stuff, right? That I've also covered in my iOS and iPadOS 18 article.
Yeah,
But in
there's a
terms
little
of,
bit.
okay,
I think.
what else?
Well, does iOS and iPadOS have this Safari stuff, the highlights?
Yeah.
Okay, it has highlights, video player, and reader. So those are on the Mac too. And video conferencing, maybe.
I'm guessing maybe this one is macOS only. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, I don't. I can't. I have such a hard time getting excited about video conferencing, Federico. I just really, it does nothing for me. But you can now switch your backgrounds to one that's been designed by Apple, including, I think, some solid colors as well as photos. Or you can use one of your own photographs in the background, and it uses the subject detection that Apple uses with all of its cameras to kind of cut you out and replace the background, which, it looks good. I don't know that I'm going to use it, but it looks good. And they also have the ability now to allow you get a preview of what you're going to share, and you can share a limited portion of your screen. And all of this will work in FaceTime, but it will also work in Zoom and WebEx and other third-party apps that adopt these APIs. So this is not like a FaceTime exclusive thing, but it'll be good for people who are giving presentations, for people who are on conference calls and sharing their screen and don't want to share all their stuff besides, their slide deck or whatever they're sharing with someone. So that's all good, I guess. I mean, it's literally something I will probably never use, though. I got to spend some time. You and I will have to have a very high-level corporate meeting someday, and I'll do a presentation for you and share just the keynote with you.
Sure. Is there anything else you've liked, even features that are also available on iOS, like something in particular that you want to call out?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things that I like a lot are the Passwords app. I think it's been high time for Passwords to have its own app, and I think it's important, even though the feature set is not very different from what we saw last year in the settings app on iOS and iPadOS, and the settings and system settings on the Mac and in the Safari preferences. But just the fact that it's its own app now, I think, makes a statement that is important in terms of security and good password hygiene being an important thing. That Apple has taken these subjects seriously for a long time, and it always felt a little weird to me that despite taking them very seriously, everything, the passwords were always tucked away in settings somewhere. And having it more front and center, I think, will make it easier for people to kind of remember, oh yeah, I have this Passwords app, I should use this app. as opposed to going hunting in the passwords themselves. And I think the design is just really well done. It's very simple. I think you said in your preview that it's reminiscent of the Reminders app, which is very true. It has that kind of feel with the big tiles in the sidebar and a list of your shared passwords below that. And I just think it's very easy to navigate around, whether you're looking for a Wi-Fi thing or you're looking for a login for a website or an app or something. I do wish that the credit card stuff was in there and that it had the ability to attach documents like PDFs and have a notes field for your passwords. I know like when we've shared things before in 1Password, I have shared important PDFs in there. I've also had notes that say, oh, here's why we use this particular service and here's how to kind of navigate it, just for like if it's something that I do most of the time, but you might want to go in there and figure out how it works. That way you've got a little bit, a few instructions on how to do that. You can't do that with this, but some of that you can kind of accomplish through notes. I don't think it's a great experience to do it in a separate app, and there are limitations on dealing with documents and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think Passwords is a great app to have.
Yeah, I agree. That's also that's been my highlight of the year so far. Just not having to worry about my password manager not working anymore and having, consistent reliability in Safari and autofill in third-party apps has been excellent.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the Notes app, really it has taken another nice step forward this year too. It's funny to watch the different system apps and to see which ones are the ones that get the annual attention and which ones seem to kind of languish. But Notes gaining the transcription, I think, the audio recording and transcription is really nice. I think that's good. It's not something that I probably will use very often myself, but if you're a student in a lecture hall listening to lectures, or you're going to a lot of business meetings, it allows you to record the audio and it can transcribe it in real time. And then with that text, you can either drop it into the note itself, share it out to another app. In my limited testing so far, it's quite accurate. So that's a really nice thing to have because it'll speed up taking meeting notes or class notes and that kind of thing, which I think is really useful for people. And collapsible headers, another nice thing, and the highlighting, which again, if you're a student or someone taking notes and you're going back and trying to reinforce some material you took notes on, having the ability to highlight things is just a nice feature. And I kind of feel like now the voice memo app, I don't think the voice memo app is going to go away because there are reasons and it's useful to have a separate voice memo app separate and apart from Notes. But in a lot of ways, what we have now in the Notes app is really the full voice memo app with the integration of Notes. So I think for a lot of people, that will be the go-to over voice memos going forward.
Yeah. Anything else you want to mention?
I think I want to mention the Safari stuff. You talked a lot about calendar and reminders, and that's, it's really the same as we discussed last week with iOS and iPadOS, with the integration of reminders and the ability to create them and check them off and all of that inside of the calendar app itself, which I know a lot of people are looking forward to. The Safari features, to me, are interesting, but a little half-baked right now. The highlights, which is where, if you go to a web page and this icon that is in the address bar on the left side has really become like a catch-all for all sorts of different features in macOS and the other OSs for that matter. And when you click on that in macOS, if there are highlights to be found on that page, they'll appear there. So the kind of thing you can do is if you go to a hotel, you'll get a highlight that'll be a little popover window with a map of where the hotel is located and its address and phone number, that kind of thing. And in my testing of that, I found a lot of hotels that support that. It's typically the big chain hotels, like you'll find Marriott's and Sheraton's and things like that in the US, you will not find maybe a local boutique type hotel in your town or something like that. But it's a useful feature because it sometimes is surprisingly difficult to find the address for a hotel on its webpage, which is kind of amazing to me, but it can be. So that it's not really replacing the content of the web page. It's just supplementing it by surfacing highlights, basically, which is why it's called that. It doesn't work as well for things like music, TV, and movies just yet. I was able to look up some shows, TV shows from various providers, both Apple and like Amazon Prime and others, and find information, links to those shows, but really only on Wikipedia so far. Like it did not work when I like looked at a review on Polygon of a TV show, for instance, or something like that. That I assume will come with time, but it's not. So far, it's pretty thin there when it comes to TV and movies. And I couldn't find any music. I looked on like artists' web pages. I looked on Wikipedia. I just couldn't find anything that was working in this first month. And then Reader, which has gotten an update to include both a table of contents and summaries. I couldn't find any articles that had tables of contents. I thought that it would probably be using H2 tags, which I know is how some of the read later apps work, where they're looking on the page for the various header tags and using that as the table of contents. I don't think they're doing that because that doesn't work. And I had a difficulty finding summaries too. I did find one article that had a summary, but I looked on like long form reads for, articles from a variety of different publishers that were very long, anywhere from like a few thousand words to like 10, 20,000 words. And had no luck at all. So that's a little bit open as to whether that is whether that's going to be useful or when that's going to actually be a little bit more effective. And then I guess the last thing I will mention is the video player, which this one I like a lot. I mean, you click in the same place in that upper left-hand corner of the address bar, and you enter video player mode on YouTube and other sites that have video players. And what's nice about it is that it fades the rest of the page in the background. So with YouTube, that means all the comments and all the links and all the stuff around the video kind of fades out and gives you kind of a nice black border around the video. And then when you maybe flip to another app or open another tab in Safari, it immediately puts that video in picture-in-picture. So you don't have to kind of do that yourself. It's not a manual process. It's automatic, which I like too. And it's, overall, it's a good experience because all these video players have slightly different controls. They look different. They're usually the same kind of things, but this makes everything look a lot like you're in QuickTime, which makes for a nice, consistent UI across whatever video players you're using.
Yeah, it looks super nice. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that, I've been using that a lot. I really do like that more than anything because a lot of times I will do that. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to start watching this video, but mostly listening to it. And then I'll flip to another tab and now I'm just got the audio, but I don't have the video. And it's just nice to have it automatically go into picture in picture and then I can kind of keep an eye on it too, which is really nice as well. All right, Federico. Well, that's it for macOS for now. As I said in my conclusion, there's nothing about this update that I don't like for the most part. I mean, I think these are all good additions. Some of them have some room to improve over the course of the beta period, but that's not unusual. I think conceptually, everything that's been added are good additions. I just found it a little disappointing and underwhelming because the number of things that have changed is very limited. And as I think I'll talk about more in the fall, there are still pretty big limitations to things like shortcuts. And there are a lot of bugs in music. There are other things that have not been touched that are sorely in need of some love and affection from the engineers on the macOS team that haven't gotten it. And at this point, I think we'll be waiting for another, I don't know, maybe 18 months,
Maybe.
which is a hard thing to say. But, 12 to 16 months maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But in any event, that's it for this week's episode of App Stories. You can find the two of us over at macstories.net. We are on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net and johnvorhees.macstories.net to follow us there. If you want to learn more about Club Mac Stories, go over to plus.club. We would love for you to join. We provide all kinds of bonus content. We have weekly newsletters. We have monthly newsletters. Depending on what level you join at, we have a Discord community. We have App Stories Plus, where you get the pre-show. There's all kinds of stuff going on with the club. It's more of what you love about Mac Stories. So check it out there. And you can find the two of us over on Threads and Instagram. Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you in a couple of weeks, Federico.
Ciao, John.